The armored SUV hits a pothole and your teeth crack together. You taste copper. Dust coats the inside of your mouth, the outside of your sunglasses, and every surface of the vehicle that was wiped clean 40 minutes ago. There are 4 of you in this truck. None of you wear a flag on your shoulder. None of you answer to a general or a president or a chain of command that ends at a desk in Washington. The man sitting in the back seat behind ballistic glass is a petroleum executive from Houston who has never held a weapon in his life. He is paying your company $11,000 per day to keep him alive while he inspects a pipeline in a country where the average annual income is $900. Your rifle sits between your knees. Your plate carrier presses against ribs that haven't fully healed since a vehicle rollover 6 weeks ago. You are a private military contractor. The polite term is security consultant. The impolite term is mercenary. The accurate term is somewhere between those two, and nobody has agreed on it yet. You earn $1,200 a day. No pension, no veterans affairs, no medal, no flag draped over your coffin if this road has a bomb buried under it. This is the private military industry, a $60 billion business built on the simple principle that governments will always need violence done, and sometimes they prefer to outsource it. This is your life at every rank. Level 1, the applicant. 8 months ago, you were still in uniform. You spent 6 years in the infantry. 2 deployments. 1 to Iraq and 1 to a country in East Africa that your family couldn't locate on a map. You were a sergeant. You led a fire team of 4 men do 12 months of combat rotations and brought everyone home breathing. You were good at your job, good enough that your commanding officer asked you to re-enlist 3 separate times. You said no 3 separate times because you finally did the math. Base pay for an E5 with 6 years of service is $42,000 a year. Factor in housing allowance, hazard pay, and combat zone tax exclusion. And you pulled maybe $58,000 total during your best year. That year included 7 months in a place where people were actively trying to kill you every single day. $58,000 to get shot at? You heard about contracting from a buddy who separated 2 years before you. He was working for a company you'd never heard of, doing PSD work in the Middle East. Personal security detail. Basically driving armored trucks and protecting high-value clients in hostile environments. He was making $800 a day, take home. No taxes in the combat zone. He told you this over beers at a bar near Fort Liberty, and you did the math on a cocktail napkin. 800 times 30 is $24,000 per month. $288,000 per year. Nearly 5 times your military salary for the same category of work in the same category of places with the same category of incoming fire. You started your separation paperwork the following week. The application process is not what you expected. You thought it would be like joining another military unit. It isn't. It's like applying for a corporate position that happens to involve automatic weapons. You submit a resume. You provide your DD-214, the discharge papers that prove you left the military honorably. You list every qualification you possess. Weapons proficiencies, combat medical certifications, security clearances, language training. Then you wait. A recruiter calls 3 weeks later. He sounds like a used car salesman, friendly and aggressive and slightly over-rehearsed. He asks about your deployments. He asks about your direct combat experience. He asks whether you have any felony convictions, any restraining orders, any drug charges, any documented history of psychological treatment. That last question makes you pause. You saw a military counselor twice after your second deployment. Nothing dramatic. Bad dreams. A temper that ran hotter than it used to. You tell the recruiter no. You do not mention the counselor. The recruiter doesn't press. He tells you the next step is a 2-week assessment course at a training facility in North Carolina. Room and board provided. Pass and you get a contract. Fail and you get a bus ticket home. The training facility is a private compound on 800 acres of Carolina pine forest. It looks like a military installation that someone rebuilt with corporate money. Clean barracks. Brand new equipment. A shooting range complex that makes every military range you've ever used look like someone's backyard. 32 candidates in your class. 20 are former United States military. 5 are British, 3 are South African. 2 are Australian. 2 are French Foreign Legion. Every single one of them has seen combat. Nobody here is learning for the first time. The instructors are all former Tier 1 Special Operations. Delta, SEAL Team, SAS, Recce Commandos. They evaluate you across 7 domains. Marksmanship, tactical driving, combat medicine, close quarters battle, communications, threat assessment, and something they call judgment. Judgment means they construct a scenario where a vehicle approaches your checkpoint too fast, and you have less than 1 second to decide whether the driver is a suicide bomber or a confused farmer who didn't see the warning signs. Get it wrong in training and you fail the course. Get it wrong overseas and your face appears on every news broadcast on Earth and your company loses a $200 million government contract. And a congressional subcommittee spends 6 months asking questions about oversight and accountability. 23 of the 32 candidates pass. You are one of them. You sign a 12-month contract with a company registered in Delaware. The ink is barely dry when they hand you a plane ticket to a country you've only seen on the news. Level 2. The static operator. You imagined armored convoys and covert extraction missions and the kind of high-speed work your buddy described over beers. Instead, you are standing at a gate. Your first assignment is static security at a logistics compound in a country that receives 300 days of sunshine per year, and every single one of them feels like standing inside an industrial oven. You work 12-hour shifts in full-body armor in temperatures that regularly exceed 120 degrees. Your job is to check identification badges, search vehicles for explosives using mirrors and dogs, and monitor security cameras that cover the perimeter fence in grainy black and white footage. You are a glorified security guard carrying a rifle and developing a permanent sunburn. The pay is $500 per day, still more than double your best military salary. But you feel cheated. You did not leave the army to stand at a checkpoint. The PSD teams that rotate through the compound drive armored SUVs with tinted windows and carry customized carbines with optics that cost more than your monthly rent backhaul. They wear plate carriers fitted specifically to their bodies and communicate on encrypted channels you don't have access to. They don't look at you when they pass through your gate. To them, you are furniture. A warm body filling a post. Warm body contracts are the bread and butter of every private military company. Low skill threshold, high volume, thin profit margins. Your company bills the client $62 per hour for your presence at this gate. You see $500 a day of that. The company absorbs the rest into overhead, insurance, logistics, and profit. You eat in a dining facility operated by another contractor. You sleep in a shipping container that someone converted into a room by installing a cot and a portable air conditioning unit that functions roughly 70% of the time. There are no barracks parties, no unit pride, no brotherhood. These men are not your platoon, they are your coworkers. The difference becomes painfully clear. The first time someone gets hurt on site and nobody visits him in the medical tent except the site manager. Who needs the injured man to sign a workers' compensation waiver before the helicopter arrives? You spend 7 months at the gate without complaint, but you network. You talk to every PSD operator who passes through your checkpoint. You buy drinks at the small bar inside the compound for team leaders and detail commanders. You hand your resume to project managers visiting from the capital. On month 8, a team leader named Kruger, a former South African reconnaissance commando with a scar running from his left ear to his jawline, tells you there's an opening on his PSD team. One of his operators failed a random drug screening and was sent home on the next available flight. Kruger asks whether you can drive an up-armored Land Cruiser at high speed through dense urban traffic while simultaneously monitoring 3 radio channels and scanning rooftops for threats. You tell him yes. He tells you to be ready at 0400. Level 3, the PSD operator. The client is an executive from a British mining corporation. He travels between 3 remote extraction sites in an active conflict zone, where 2 armed groups and a government military force had been killing each other for 9 years over mineral rights. Your job is to keep this man breathing between points A, B, and C. You are part of a 6-man detail split across 2 vehicles. The principal rides in the second vehicle behind ballistic glass. You drive the lead truck. You are the one who hits the improvised explosive device first if there's one buried under the road surface. You are the one who absorbs the ambush first if there's one waiting around the next bend. You are the canary in the mine shaft wrapped in Kevlar and driving 60 miles per hour on a dirt road. Your pay jumps to $900 per day. Kruger runs his team differently than anything you experience in the military. Briefings begin at 3:30 in the morning. Route analysis, satellite imagery, intelligence updates sourced from local contacts that Kruger has cultivated over 4 years and 3 contracts in this region. Contingency plans for every intersection and bridge and choke point along the planned route. You memorize alternate paths. You memorize the GPS coordinates of the 2 nearest hospitals. You memorize the radio frequency for the closest military quick reaction force, though Kruger warns you never to depend on them. When things go sideways out here, he says, you fix it yourself or nobody fixes it. That is the difference between this work and military service. In the military, you had air support and artillery and a battalion headquarters tracking your movement on a digital map. Here you have Kruger, 5 other contractors, 2 armored trucks, and whatever ammunition you packed this morning. The first time things go sideways is a Tuesday afternoon. A truck blocks the road ahead. It could be a mechanical breakdown, It could be the opening move of a complex ambush. Kruger's voice comes across the radio. Flat, calm, almost bored. Don't stop. Go around. You swerve onto the dirt shoulder. The second vehicle follows tight. 100 meters past the truck, you hear the unmistakable crack of a rifle round passing close enough to compress the air near your ear. Someone is shooting at you. You accelerate to 90 miles per hour on a road that was not built for 40. Dust blinds the windshield. The radio erupts with voices. Kruger calls contact right. The rear gunner calls all clear behind. Your client in the second vehicle goes completely silent, because silence is what pure terror sounds like when it has nowhere to go. The shooting stops after 11 seconds. Nobody is hit. You drive for another 45 minutes without slowing down. At the compound, the client steps out of the vehicle. His hands are shaking violently. Yours are not. You have done this before. The only difference between today and your military deployments is that today there is no after-action report filed through official channels, and no combat action ribbon pinned to your chest, and the man whose life you just saved will never learn your last name. Level 4, the team leader. Kruger rotates home after his contract expires. He takes a position training police forces in the Gulf for twice the money and half the danger, and sends you a text message that says, "Good luck," followed by nothing else. Because Kruger does not waste words, he recommended you as his replacement. You are now the team leader. 8 operators under your direct command. The client portfolio has expanded. You are protecting 3 principals simultaneously across a region the size of a small European country. You plan every single movement. You approve every route. You select personnel for each detail based on individual temperament and capability, because some operators stay calm under fire, and some operators shoot accurately under fire. And very few are both simultaneously, and you need the precise combination for every mission profile. Your compensation climbs to $1,500 per day. You carry a satellite phone and a laptop loaded with proprietary mapping software and encrypted communication tools that your company's technical division built specifically for field operations. You coordinate with local military commanders who tolerate your presence because your company pays access fees that go directly into their personal bank accounts. You also coordinate with a client's corporate security director who occupies an office in London and has never heard a gunshot outside a clay pigeon range in Surrey. He questions your operational decisions on a weekly conference call. Why the northern route instead of the southern approach? Why did you request an additional vehicle? Why is a monthly operational budget 14% above projection? You explain with patience you do not feel because the contract renewal depends on this man's satisfaction. Then you disconnect the call and return to the business of keeping human beings alive in a country where life expectancy is 51 years. Level 5, the project manager. Your knees deliver a forecast every morning before you check the weather. You are 39 years old. 15 years of carrying body armor and weapon systems in places where the ambient temperature alone could hospitalize you. The company offers you a project management role, and you accept because your body has started making decisions your mind hasn't approved yet. You trade your plate carrier for a collared shirt. You work from a rented office in a capital city, a considerably nicer district than the ones you've been operating in for the past decade. Your job now is to manage multiple teams across the entire operational theater, hiring operators, terminating operators who fail standards, logistics chains for armored vehicles, ammunition, medical supplies, aviation assets, client relationship management, contract compliance reviews, incident report analysis conducted with the same clinical detachment an insurance adjuster brings to a fender bender in a suburban parking lot. Your salary is $350,000 per year plus performance bonuses tied directly to contract renewals. If the client renews, you receive a check for $50,000. If the client does not renew because one of your teams made a catastrophic error in judgment, you receive a meeting with the regional director that concludes with your resignation letter being suggested in polite but unmistakable language. You sit in your air-conditioned office reviewing spreadsheets and you feel something unexpected. You miss the convoys. You miss the dust and the weight of the plate carrier and the clarity that comes from knowing that the only thing that matters right now is the next 500 meters of road. The spreadsheets don't provide that clarity. Nothing in an office ever does. Level 6, the country manager. You oversee every operation your company conducts within an entire nation, 12 teams, 140 operators, 3 separate contracts worth a combined $94 million annually. You meet with the American ambassador on a monthly basis. You brief the defense attaché weekly over coffee in a secure conference room inside the embassy. You manage relationships with the host nation's senior military leadership through a practiced combination of professional courtesy and financial incentive that nobody discusses openly and everybody understands perfectly. Your compensation is $500,000 per year. You live in a secured compound with a swimming pool and a personal chef and perimeter guards who work for your own company. The irony visits you occasionally. You're being protected by the same category of men you used to be. Then the incident happens. One of your teams engages a vehicle at a traffic circle in the capital city. The vehicle failed to stop when ordered. Your operators open fire. 17 rounds. The driver is killed instantly. The passenger, a 14-year-old boy, is critically wounded. The vehicle contained no weapons, no explosives, no hostile intent of any kind. A fire and his son drive him to a clinic because the boy had a fever. The dashboard camera footage goes viral within 6 hours. The host government demands accountability. Your company's share price drops 4% in a single trading day. The legal team deploys from Virginia on a chartered jet. The public relations team crafts a statement that uses the words, regrettable and thorough internal review and deepest sympathy. You sit in a conference room and listen to attorneys and corporate executives discuss the monetary settlement value of the dead father and the wounded child. Liability thresholds are debated. Settlement figures are proposed and revised. The conversation is clinical and procedurally efficient and makes you want to drive into the desert and never return. Level 7, the Director of Operations, Corporate Headquarters, Northern Virginia. A glass building in a business park indistinguishable from the offices housing accounting firms and software consultancies on either side. Inside the lobby, there is a company logo and a reception desk staffed by a woman who does not know what the company actually does. Upstairs, there are maps of every active conflict zone on Earth, pinned to walls in conference rooms that require keycard access. You oversee all operations across 14 countries on 3 continents. 3,000 operators deployed simultaneously at any given moment. Your company holds active contracts with the United States Department of Defense, the Department of State, the Central Intelligence Agency, the United Nations, 4 foreign governments, and 11 multinational corporations operating in resource extraction and infrastructure development. Annual revenue is $1.2 billion. You sit in weekly executive meetings where organized violence is discussed in the vocabulary of quarterly earnings reports. Deployment tempo is reframed as a staffing metric. Hostile engagements are categorized as risk events. Dead operators become attrition statistics. Dead civilians become liability exposure. You attend closed-session congressional hearings where senators in expensive suits ask pointed questions about contractor oversight and accountability, and you provide responses that are technically accurate and strategically incomplete. The senators accept your answers because the alternative is publicly acknowledging that the United States government has outsourced a meaningful percentage of its war-fighting capacity to private corporations, and that unwinding this dependency would be more politically expensive than maintaining it. Your compensation is $800,000 per year plus equity. You own 1.5% of an organization whose market valuation rises when a new conflict begins and declines when a ceasefire is signed. You have a direct financial incentive for the world to remain dangerous. You don't examine this fact too closely. You think instead about competitive positioning and talent pipelines and market share. But the arithmetic exists whether you look at it or not. Level 8, the founder. You built this company from a metal barn on 200 acres in the rural American South. You were special operations. Tier 1. The specific unit is still classified, and you still cannot confirm or deny your affiliation despite the fact that everyone in this industry already knows. You saw what the Pentagon missed. After the Cold War ended, Western militaries shrank. Government slashed force levels and closed bases and celebrated peace dividends. But the world didn't get safer, it got more complicated. Failed states, resource conflicts, transnational terrorism, corporate expansion into regions where law enforcement didn't exist and governments couldn't or wouldn't provide security. Somebody was going to fill the vacuum between what governments needed done and what their shrinking militaries could accomplish. You decided that somebody would be you. The company started with 12 former operators and a single contract protecting commercial shipping in Southeast Asian waters. Now you employ 6,000 people in 31 countries. You operate a fleet of armored vehicles across 4 continents. You maintain a small aviation wing. You own training facilities in North Carolina, Jordan, and the Philippines. Your lobbying operation in Washington spends $4 million annually maintaining relationships with the congressional committee chairs and Pentagon procurement officials, who award the federal contracts that generate 60% of your revenue. Your personal net worth is $110 million. You have been profiled by every major newspaper and news magazine in the English-speaking world. Half the profiles describe you as a patriot providing essential services that protect American interests. The other half describe you as a war profiteer extracting private wealth from public conflict. Both descriptions contain enough truth to sting. You've testified before Congress 4 times. You sat in front of cameras and microphones and elected officials who used your name and your company as political props during the hearing, and then phoned you privately the following week to discuss contracts for their donors and constituents. You've been sued 11 times. You settled 9. You've been investigated by the FBI, the Department of Justice, and 2 foreign governments. Nothing stuck because you employ the most expensive defense attorneys in the country. In this industry, legal protection is as operationally essential as body armor and ammunition. You no longer carry a weapon personally. You no longer need to. You have your own protection detail. 4 operators rotating in 12-hour shifts. They drive your vehicles and stand outside your doors and sweep your home for surveillance devices every morning before you eat breakfast. You are shielded from the world by the machine you constructed. The thousands of men and women who work for you will never meet you in person. They know your name from the corporate logo printed on their paychecks and stitched onto the patches they wear on their shoulders. In countries where that patch means something entirely different than it means inside your boardroom, to you it represents market dominance and shareholder value. To the operator standing at a checkpoint in the heat, it represents the difference between a bullet that comes with institutional accountability and a bullet that comes with none. There is no ceremony when your operators die. No national moment of silence, no congressional resolution. No flag folded 13 times and presented to a grieving spouse by a uniformed officer who calls the deceased a hero. There is a phone call from Human Resources, a claims form, a wire transfer in the amount specified by the contract, a body repatriated through a logistics company that handles commercial freight and human remains with identical administrative process. You keep a list, a file on your desk, 231 names, people who died while employed by a company with your signature on the Articles of Incorporation. You read the list sometimes, late at night when the building is empty and the cleaning crew has left. You tell yourself they understood the risks. They signed the contracts voluntarily. They accepted the terms with open eyes. This is true, but the truth does not shorten the list, and it does not slow the rate at which new names are added. Somewhere tonight, a young soldier is lying on a bunk in a barracks at Fort Liberty or Camp Pendleton, or a British garrison in Catterick. He is scrolling through a job board on his phone. He sees the listing. Security contractor, hostile environment experience required. $800 per day. He does the multiplication on his phone calculator and his eyes widen. His discharge date is 4 months away. He's already imagining the money, the autonomy, the chance to use skills the military spent years drilling into him, without the low pay and the bureaucratic suffocation and the rules of engagement written by lawyers who have never heard a round snap past their head. He doesn't know about the 7 months standing at a gate and killing heat. The convoys where you're the first vehicle into the ambush. The conference rooms where lawyers assign dollar values to dead children, the list that grows longer every year in a file on a desk he'll never sit behind. He doesn't know that no flag will cover his coffin. He just sees the number. $800 per day. He clicks apply. The cycle begins again.